Welcome back to the Good and Plenty podcast. I am your host, Jeff Goodman, and college hoops is finally here. The games have begun, and they started with a bang. We will talk about that in this week's edition of the Good and Plenty podcast. Remember, every Tuesday, the NBA edition, every Thursday, the college hoops edition. And you can subscribe on iTunes, Stitcher, CLNS Media. Please give us your reviews on iTunes. You can find me on Twitter at Goodman Hoops. I work for a Stadium, which is watchstadium.com, so you can find all my work there. But this week's guest is a favorite of mine for years, former Purdue star Robbie Hummel, now with ESPN and the Big Ten Network. And we will get to Robbie Hummel now on his take on everything that happened on that first night of college hoops and more right now. Quick break to tell you today's show is brought to you by The Athletic. If you haven't heard about The Athletic by now, you must be living under a rock. These guys have been crushing every element of sports coverage imaginable. Whether you're looking for specific local coverage with beat guys, sports discussed under a national lens, or anything in between, you got to make sure you take a look at The Athletic. No pop-ups, no ads, high-quality content waiting behind every single click. Zach Harper, Frank Isola, Sam Amick, who was a guest on this show, Shams Charania, also a guest on this show and a colleague of mine. They have you covered on everything NBA related. If college is more your style, then make sure you check out Seth Davis, Dana O'Neill, Brian Hamilton. You can't get content like this anywhere else. 600 to 750 new articles a week. Who else is pushing out quality content like this? If you haven't signed up yet, take advantage of this deal because it's not going to last. Go to theathletic.com/Goodman. Get 40% off your monthly subscription. That's a subscription for less than $3 a month just by going to theathletic.com/Goodman. Shams, Amick, Harper, Seth Davis, Dana O'Neill, all for less than $3 a month. Sign me up. Sign yourself up to theathletic.com/Goodman. Now happy to introduce my guy, ESPNer, Big Ten Network, Robbie Hummel. And Rob, I don't even know what to say when people have asked me about this Duke performance against Kentucky, and we're recording this here the morning after, Wednesday afternoon. I really haven't had a chance to really kind of figure this whole thing out, other than the fact that Duke just looks so damn good and Kentucky looks so bad, and it's almost like Duke played their A-plus game, but could they really have played their A-plus game on the first game of their college careers?
Right. I don't know. It is an unfathomable thought. And they look like a team that's playing like this at the Final Four. I mean, to do this in your first game with so many freshmen, I'm not sure how you guard them. And as a coach, when you see Zion Williamson knock down basically a stare-down three to start the game, you're got to be like, well, how are we supposed to guard him now? It's just R.J. Barrett was phenomenal. Cam Reddish was phenomenal. Zion Williamson was amazing. I mean, these guys played so good for their first college game.
They played so good if they were seniors, Rob.
They don't look like college kids.
Right.
These three guys are 6'7". They're built like they're in the NBA. They don't look like college players. When I came into school at Purdue, I was 6'8", as tall as these guys. I was 190 pounds. Yeah. I couldn't bench press 180 pounds. I couldn't bench my weight. These dudes are grown men.
No, you're right. You're right. And they're not only grown men, but I think the big difference between when you came out and when they're coming out is with social media, with USA Basketball, with like R.J. Barrett's played so much for the Canadian national, all these under 19 teams.
So this isn't a big deal to him.
No.
And Zion Williamson already has 3 million followers on Instagram. He's a celebrity.
Yes.
So, but aside from those three guys, there was other guys that made huge contributions. I mean, Marcus Bolden, I thought, played his role well. Jack White was really good, guarding Tyler Hero, getting 11 rebounds. They played as a team.
Yes.
That wasn't just like a one-on-one ball-out session with three super talented guys. That was a team destruction of another top 5 team.
I think one of the things that's going to separate this Duke team is the fact that over the last couple of years, they've had factions within that locker room because of Grayson Allen. That's Kay's boy. Okay, he tried to protect Grayson as much as he possibly could. And even when he wasn't playing well, he would give him opportunity after opportunity. And I think all the younger guys that came in over the last couple of years were kind of like, what the hell's going on here? I'm better than Grayson, yet it's his team still. Now there's none of that because it's a clear divide, right? And there's no divide. The freshmen are the four best players, and then you've got all these role guys like Bolden, Jack White, Delorier, Alex O'Connell. They know who they are. They know this is the freshmen's team, and the freshmen kind of like each other. Obviously, Zion Williamson committed. I mean, think about this. When he committed to Duke, Rob, nobody thought he was going to commit because they already had R.J. Barrett. They already had Cam Reddish. So everybody's like, why would Zion Williamson go to Duke when they already have these guys? So he went there understanding that he wasn't going to be the guy.
Yeah, no, but think about this team. Not only that, we've talked about offensively, and the three freshmen are super talented, but from a defensive standpoint, last year Duke playing zone, super weird to see. This year, from a man-to-man standpoint, these dudes, you can switch 1 through 4. You've got 3 guys on the floor that are 6'7". You got a rim protector. How are you going to score? I was thinking as I was watching the game, how can you beat this Duke team? Like, what is going to be the formula? And right now, I'm not sure because they can make outside shots, they can play inside, they can get after you defensively. It was as complete a performance on opening night as I've ever seen.
Well, I think how you beat them is they don't go 12 for 26 from 3.
No, and that helps, but still, like they can. I think this team can beat you in a grinding out game because they can guard.
Yeah, and it starts with Trey Jones on that end too. But you're right; they have the length. I mean, Zion's not long, but it doesn't matter with him. I mean, he plays like he's a freak.
Freakishly athletic. Yeah.
I mean, it looks like he's jumping off a trampoline early, and I've seen him play a ton. But when you see him again, and you haven't seen him for a little while, which I hadn't since March at the McDonald's game, you're just like, oh my God, the way this guy and Kentucky just wilted. Like you could tell, other than Keldon Johnson and maybe Reed Travis, all those other guys were just, they were scared. They played scared.
A little intimidated at the moment, I think, would be. And to me, you come out, Duke makes 4 of their first 5 threes. They set the tone. Kentucky, you could tell, it was like getting punched in the mouth, and you just never punch back. Tyler Hero looked a little bit maybe overwhelmed by the moment, took some shots that he probably took in high school last year, and that was fine. But in this type of game, when you get that, you got to move the ball. You got to get some good looks at the rim, and they just never were able to do that. But their point guard play wasn't good either.
No.
Emmanuel Quickly was bad. Ashton Hagens, I guess, was a little better. He had 4 assists, but it was not a. They were never in the game. It was a one-punch knockout, and then 39 more minutes of basketball.
I'm glad after the first game, Kansas beats Michigan State, and we go down after the game, and post game, you're listening to coaches. First, it was Kansas players. They came up first, and it was Grimes and Dedrick Lawson, and then Bill Self took a while. So I'm like, damn, like I want to get up. I want to see this game. I was going to write off the first game and write off the second game, and I'm like, you know what? I just want to get up for the start of that second game. Who knows what you're going to miss? And
sure.
I'm glad I did because I think a couple other reporters walked in at like the second TV timeout at like the 12-minute mark, the game was over. I mean, legitimately.
No, the story was written.
I could have written the story.
I think the play you could have. The play that summed it up to me, though, and I'd never seen R.J. Barrett play before.
Okay.
The 2-on-1 fast break where he kind of looked off Zion Williamson and then just went upstairs and dunked the basketball. It was the men versus the boys. It really was, and that set the tone for the whole rest of the half. He was impressive, man. I like I said, never seen him play, but I see why he was the number 1 player in the country. He can really, really play.
He's so he's aggressive, taking it to the basket. He finishes through contact so well. Unbelievable body control. He sees the floor well. And if he can make shots, and that's been the big knock on him, obviously, is his three-point shooting. But if he can do that, there's no reason to think he won't be a star even at the next level, which a lot of people kind of question because if you don't have a shot, it's obviously harder
to make shots,
as we see with even Ben Simmons.
But you're right. The body control, the ability to finish.
Wow.
He was – and then you tack on 6 assists. Like he did a little bit of everything for Duke last night. Super impressed.
So we'll flip it, and Kentucky, and they look brutal. They look like Eastern Kentucky. I mean, it really did. It really. If you had taken the jerseys off and said like, Duke just beat. This is Eastern Kentucky. They're playing right now, and people didn't know better. You would have been like, yeah, this is Eastern Kentucky.
From a score perspective, 118. Like, what college teams have scored 118 points? You get to 100 and you think you scored a lot. So, yeah, that would be like playing a low major team, I guess. But it's shocking still. I still am shocked by the result.
Yeah, I think Calipari was too in the post game.
Well, he's been very confident.
Yes.
And he's a guy that I think you've seen when maybe there's been the hype around his teams. He's been a guy that said, hey, let's pump the brakes a little bit, like we're young or we're whatever. That hasn't necessarily been the case this season. So I think that's what makes this even more surprising. I don't think he believed that this could be a possible result.
Hell no. I mean, listen, I've said it. I think they have the fewest amount of holes of any team in the country. Now, I got to revise that now. But they have 3 point guards. They have a couple wings. They've got enough shooting. They've got 4 bigs. Now, I was shocked. I don't know how you were. Early in the second half, they went with a big lineup of 3 bigs and Keldon Johnson at the 2. And they're already down like 20. They got a chance if they go on a run to kind of make it a game. But I don't know how you play that way these days, especially with a Duke team that's long, athletic, that can really get up and down.
Yeah, no, guarding Duke would be impossible with that lineup almost. I think going forward with your Kentucky, you see Reed Travis. I thought he played with a lot of heart, and I thought he stayed in the game. He did a good job. You mentioned Keldon Johnson. He had a nice night. Maybe E.J. Montgomery. I thought in the second half he was pretty good, but it was garbage time. That's the same with Tyler Hero. He gets 14 points, but how many of those were when the game was completely out of hand?
What do you worry about with Kentucky now? Like, do you worry about how they come back from this, a young team, or you not? I mean, Reed Travis, I think, will be fine.
I'm not worried about it, but I'm intrigued by it.
Me too.
I think anytime you get your doors blown off
Yep.
at any level, you want to see how these guys are going to respond. So it's embarrassing when you lose on national television like this. And this isn't comparable. We played my sophomore year. We played Duke ACC Big Ten Challenge and got our doors blown off. Lost by 20. It's not this bad, but that next film session, there's going to be some guys getting ripped apart. And I know Coach Cal is not going to hold back on any of that, but it's a humbling feeling, and they're going to do some soul searching. I would love to be a fly on the wall at Kentucky's practice tomorrow. I would love to see that, but he'll get it figured out. I mean, he's a good coach. I think with Cal, people think of him as such a recruiter. He's got his teams playing like Duke played last night, where they play together, they play for each other, and it snowballed early, and it got out of hand, and they were never able to catch up.
Think about this, Rob. He's in his 26th year of college coaching, I think. He's probably been coaching over 30 years overall between NBA. The worst loss of his career comes with that team.
With a team that he loves. He seems to love.
Well, because they're high character. They're good kids. They work hard. They're high character. So I think you like all of that. Again, the point guard play to me was huge. Trey Jones was great for Duke. He didn't do too much, but he guards.
Played his role. Yes. I mean, he did exactly what he needed to do. 7 assists, no turnovers.
Yep.
Just so locked into what he needs to do. And you know what? When you're a point guard and you've got Zion Williamson and Cam Reddish and R.J. Barrett, think about that position. I got to get these guys the ball. And if I do, I'm going to look great. I would love to play point guard with those 3 dudes. He's in a good spot. He's a good player.
He is a good player. You know, again, I want to see how this plays out, because now everybody's going to be talking about Duke like they can't lose. 4 years ago.
They're young still. You got to think of that. They're going to get into some conference games in January. They'll probably even have some non-conference games that are tough. But you think about playing in the ACC, January, February, going on the road. They're going to have a slip up or two.
4 years ago, Kentucky blasted Kansas in the same event in the same city. Okay, they ended up going 38-0. So everybody's like, that was the Harrison Twins year. They were good. But it was the SEC. It wasn't the ACC. People don't realize that.
Right.
The SEC wasn't very good that year.
And not the SEC that you have now.
Correct.
Where you're starting to Kentucky's going to get tested. So you're right. It was a different type of deal. And the ACC is a whole nother level. You think about Duke going into Carolina or some of the other great venues they have in that conference. It's going to be tough.
So is there any doubt now, after you seeing these 3 guys, in this Duke team? Like, do you come out of that saying, like, how does R.J. Barrett not go number one overall?
No, I that's my thought. And I think the hype around Zion Williamson I get because his ability to dunk and play above the rim and just athletically is so impressive. But I thought R.J. Barrett's feel, I thought you mentioned he hasn't been known as a three-point shooter, but he made them last night. I just don't know how you don't take him number one. He's a guy that you can build your franchise around.
Yeah, I mean, he does everything. And they have the one thing, too. Calipari brought it up. He said, we only forced four turnovers. Okay, so they only forced 4. And part of the reason for that is because Duke's got guys that can handle the ball. They've got those kind of multi-dimensional forwards.
Well, that's 100% right. Think about this. As for Duke's team in the starting lineup, they have 4 guys that can start the break. You miss a shot, you don't have to find the point guard. Any 4 of those dudes can take it off the rim, start the break, and get something going in transition. And when they get out and do that with the athletes and the length they have, they're impossible to stop. I mean, they look like the Warriors running up and down the court. It makes them so terrifying to scout and play against. It really was impressive.
All right, so let's go to the undercard a little bit. And Kansas ended up beating Michigan State. No real surprise. I think the surprise was Kansas dominated for 35 minutes. And Tom Izzo told me after the game he felt like they were happy to just be in it at the end. How were they even in it? Because they really had no right. Doak looked great for Kansas. Like, I can't believe how much he's progressed offensively to where you could throw him in, throw the ball into him, and he's got moves now.
And he'll get you a bucket.
Yeah. And not just like overpowering people.
He's not just a rim roller and a shot blocker. He really does do a nice job. And Michigan State's bigs aren't able to match him physically. Like Nick Ward is 6'8". Yeah. Xavier Tillman is like 6'8". So, but how many people in college basketball can? So you're right. He has really improved. He's done a great job, even from just last year. I think Kansas, the freshmen were awesome. Dedrick Lawson's not going to go 5'18" on a lot of nights. So I thought that for those young guys to step up, make shots. LaGerald Vick's 1 of 7. He's a known commodity. So they're scary good too. And to me, Michigan State was disappointing just because you've heard a lot about Nick Ward being this new, mature player, and honestly, he looked to me like he was doing the same stuff. He's triple teamed and shooting, and move the ball. You got some guys that can shoot it and play. And Cassius Winston was a little disappointing too. He ended up with a double-double, but he turned the ball over 5 times, didn't shoot it great. Just
he's got to do too much though, Rob. He's got to do too much on this team right now. Like Matt McQuaid did nothing. They just didn't have enough help for him ultimately, and
they scored 87 points. Defensively was a lot of their issues. Like Kenny going to just 17, you'll always take that 17-11.
Yep.
So, I mean, they scored enough. It was just defensively they couldn't guard.
Well, it's hard to guard that Kansas.
The paint was really Kansas owned the paint. Yeah. They dominated inside, and that's why they won the game.
Well, the way Kansas plays, the way Bill Self likes to play with a couple bigs, he's got the perfect team for him this year, right? He's got
that high-low, man. They can run it. When he's got 2 big guys, and he's had it a lot, whether it's the Morris twins or that's Thomas Robinson and that team where they had it with Jeff Withey. When they can play high-low, and like you said, with Azubuike and Lawson, man, those guys will find each other. And Lawson's going to get a ton of assists this year throwing the ball inside to a guy like Azubuike.
And then you throw out there the young freshman guards, right? I mean, Dotson can really go. He's kind of the prototypical Kansas point guard. He can really get after it and go and run. And you got Grimes. If he's making shots on the wing, it's like, holy shit, how do you guard these guys?
No, I know. You have 4 guys with 16 or more. They can beat you in a lot of different ways. They really can. So, and like I said, LaGerald Vick was not good last night, and he can be. He can have nights where he's going to be really good.
He doesn't have to be. I mean, that's the
he doesn't.
The beauty.
But he's not going to go 1 of 7 and 0 of 4.
No, the interesting thing. Listen, the thing that could derail Kansas is obviously what happens with the whole FBI. Now NCAA investigation. Does this go away? Does the NCAA take a lot of time? Because, listen, if this thing gets going, even guys who can handle the media and handle everything about as well as anybody, which look at Tom Izzo last year, and how this whole thing affected him. They're different, obviously, situations, but it affected him. It affected his team. And if this thing takes on a life of its own with Kansas, which you got to figure would be the first school, if the NCAA starts to dig in and look at all the allegations that happened through that first trial, they'd have to look at Kansas.
No, I 100% agree. There certainly are some things that are very implicating to them. So, like you said, they're probably going to be one of the first to hear about it. But when you look at their team, it's a shame because they are fun to watch and they're well built. And honestly, they're probably a team that right now I would say I'd love to see Duke Kansas. That would be a great game. But we'll see. Only time will tell.
And Kansas doesn't even need D'Souza. Like they really don't.
No, they don't.
Unless Doak gets in foul trouble.
Lightfoot is at least capable.
Yeah.
He's not as good as Silvio D'Souza, but he can come in here and back these guys up and not be overwhelmed.
Yeah, KJ Lawson. I mean, they got enough.
Right.
They got enough. They're not. Where do you? You're a Big Ten guy, so when you watch Michigan State last night, are you thinking to yourselves, all right, you know what? Maybe the Big Ten's a little bit more open than I thought. This team isn't quite as good as we all. Because again, you thought Nick Ward was going to take the step. You know, Cassius Winston's one of the better point guards in the country, and if he's got Nick Ward and Matt McQuaid takes a step, and we know he should be able to shoot the hell out of it. He hasn't done it yet in his college career consistently. But when you saw Michigan State, what are you thinking?
I think the Big Ten is definitely wide open. I think you're looking at the league. I think it's deeper than last year, but we don't have the elite teams like the Purdue with Isaac Haas or the Michigan State team from last year where they win 30 games in the regular season. I just don't think that we have that team yet. I think Michigan has a chance, but it's wide open. I definitely agree with that. I think Michigan State certainly has a ways to go. But how many times have we seen Michigan State lose and sometimes lose big early on in the non-conference, and then by the time March rolls around, they figured it out. We've seen Michigan make huge improvements over the last 2 years as the season's gone on. I think Nebraska's an interesting team. Indiana is an interesting one as well. I think there's a lot of teams that can make that step and compete in the top tier of the Big Ten.
You know, I was supposed to drive out to Bloomington this morning and sit down with Romeo Langford, but I slept through my alarm. Like, I don't know what happened. Legitimately, I got back to the room at like 2:30 last night. I called for a wake-up call and set my alarm. I always do both just to make sure, right? So did that, and
it was fate. Fate didn't want you to go talk to Romeo. Huh?
I don't know what happened. All of a sudden, I wake up at 10 o'clock, and I should have been in Bloomington doing some stuff for Stadium Live at 10 o'clock, and I get a call from somebody at Stadium saying, "You ready?" And I'm like, I look at the clock. I'm like, oh man, 10 o'clock. I'm like,
it's like when you overslept on your alarm for like an exam in college or something.
The worst. So jump in the shower, get ready.
That immediate feel of panic overcomes.
Yeah, I mean, listen, not a big deal that I didn't get down there, but Romeo to me is a guy that I think you and I talked about it the other night a little bit. He has so much on his shoulders as an in-state guy who's supposed to kind of be the savior, much in the way Eric Gordon did it. Zeller got it. Yep. I don't know if Romeo's got the DNA to handle this. And I've talked to a lot of NBA people who've seen him lately, and they're like, I don't know. Like, we don't really see it as a top 5 pick right now.
Right. Well, I think that just from watching him last night, he was very good. And he started the game off getting his teammates involved. He was very unselfish, then kind of got himself going. His mid-range game looked good. He is a good athlete. But you're right. Like, the hype is equal to the Eric Gordon stuff. And I was the same class as Eric, so I kind of got to see that firsthand with the Indiana All-Stars and all that deal. And if you remember the Illinois decommitment and that deal, it was as he committed to Indiana, it got into a fever pitch. And that's kind of how this Romeo Langford deal was too. And with Eric, we talked about this the other night. They seem to have very similar personalities off the floor. Eric is very chill. He's super laid back, very quiet. But on the court, man, that dude was a killer. Yeah. He had, oh my God. I mean, he could do anything. He was a stud. And I'm not saying Romeo Langford's not, but we'll see, does he have that type of mentality on the floor? Because EJ, man, he could do it all. And also the thing that I think differentiates them right now is Eric's range was NBA ready going to college. He was ready to play at that level and make shots at that level as an 18-year-old kid. And right now, I think Romeo Langford's a very good, elite athlete. Last night his mid-range game looked great, but from a shooting standpoint, and the NBA is a shot-making league, is he ready to do that? I don't know. We'll see.
Today's show is also brought to you by Audible. I think we all know at this point Audible has the largest selection of audiobooks you'll find anywhere. Go ahead and search for something. I recently went on and found out Jim Calhoun's book, Passion to Lead, is on there. First off, what a story. One of the greatest coaches, not just in UConn history, but in basketball history. He narrates the book himself. A former colleague of mine at ESPN, Ian O'Connor, just wrote a book about New England Patriots head coach Bill Belichick that the entire internet is raving about. Now Audible wants to introduce you guys to Audible Originals, exclusive titles created by celebrated storytellers from around the world, from different journalists, screenwriters, authors, and more. Every month, Audible members get one credit good for any book on Audible, plus they get 2 selections from Audible Originals. This is a deal you can't get anywhere else. You also get access to fitness and health tips created exclusively for Audible. Listen at home, at the gym, in the car, wherever. Plus, with Audible, your books are yours to keep, even if you cancel your membership. Don't waste any more time. Get started for free today with Audible. Go to audible.com/plenty or text plenty to 500500 for a 30-day free trial with Audible, which comes with an audio book and 2 Audible Originals. That's audible.com/plenty or text the word plenty to 500500. You know who the freshman is that hasn't taken off yet? I wonder if he will. You know, we're going to talk about all the Duke, the Kentucky guys, Romeo. Bol. I don't know if you've seen him yet. Have you seen Bol?
I saw him at the NBA Players Association Top 100 camp like 2 years ago, though, so it's been a while.
All right. Like, he's 7'2" or whatever he is.
Pretty skilled.
Super skilled. Like, most people, they don't remember his dad, but his dad was kind of almost a comedy routine watching him shoot threes. You know, he'd go up there and shoot him, but he was just a shot blocker. He was just a defender. Bol is a defender, and he can really, really shoot it. Now, he didn't take a three. I thought he was honestly, other than the Duke win, the biggest surprise of opening night was Bol not launching threes, because that's what he loves to do. At 7'2" or whatever he is.
At 7'2", get him up.
I think this kid, now the problem is he's playing on the West Coast. So he's not going to see him. If he was playing for Duke last night, like seriously, if that kid was playing for Duke, everybody would be talking about Bol, and again, his ability to impact the game defensively, and I'm not sold on Bol. I'm not sold on him. Trust me, like he's a kid who plays hard on occasion. We'll see if he matures this year. He even knows he needs to mature.
Right.
But man, he's the most intriguing. He and Zion are like 2 of the most intriguing freshmen I've ever seen. Now Zion plays hard, literally almost all the time. I mean, he just plays with a motor.
He definitely does.
But you got to watch Bol.
Just from seeing Bol, I didn't get to see him play last night, but I know he was skilled. I know he's big. It's amazing how these kids, they've fallen in love with shooting threes. When a guy like Bol, you think you could, get him to play off of closeouts and play in the post a little bit and score a bunch, but it's the way it is. It's the Warriors effect.
No, it started with Dirk and KD. I think it's mostly KD. I do. I think it's mostly KD, and I actually approached him with it last year, and I said, I'm like, you've like kind of screwed up the game where every big guy now wants to be you, and even if they can't shoot, they try to. And he kind of looked at me, and I've known him forever. He was like, really? I'm like, yeah.
But it's also like you see all these kids, and it used to be like dunking was cool, and now like shooting 40-foot threes off pick and rolls is cool. Like I have my little kids camp, and these kids play like Steph Curry. It's like Steph's screwing the game up too.
Well, because everybody,
in a good way,
right?
Because everybody wants to do what he does, and it's
right.
just,
if you can't dunk, you can't dunk, right? Like you have to have.
Everybody can shoot threes. Like dunking is like you got to be tall, you got to be super athletic.
Right.
Everybody can launch a three up there.
Yep.
That doesn't mean you should.
Yeah, no doubt about that. But every big. That's why I love the bigs now, who know they're big. Now again, the game's changed. Look at Jahlil Okafor in the NBA. He comes around 15 years ago. he's getting a max contract. Now he can't even get in the court in today's NBA.
Right. No, I think, and I'm obviously I pay close attention to Purdue, but think about Isaac Haas.
Yeah.
Like, if you draft him in 1994, where you've got like Hakeem, Shaq, guys that can actually like play with their back to the basket, Isaac Haas is like a top 15 pick. But now he's an undrafted guy because no one plays like that anymore. Who do you think is the best back to the basket big in the NBA right now?
Who is the best back to the basket? Seriously, I don't even know if I could tell you.
I don't know if there is one. Like, it would be like, to me, and I have lost track a little bit since I've been out of the NBA, but like Zach Randolph, I guess, but he doesn't play hardly anymore, so I don't know.
That's a great question.
Joel Embiid is facing up and driving the ball. Like, there's nobody that's gonna like give you the Shaq, and Shaq was a freak. Don't get me wrong, but like the back down, be physical, just drop step, dunk or jump hook. Like that doesn't happen anymore.
Yeah, that's a great question. I don't know who that is anymore.
Like, big guys have kind of gotten the shaft. Guys like you said you look for Isaac Haas. It's tough for him.
Yeah, there's just not many around, and that's why again you look at Duke and the personnel they have, and guys that can do a lot of different things. They're not limited, right? And they can run and they can guard, and I don't know. I just think again, this Duke team, the more you look at them, the more you're going to be impressed. But they're going to have their slip ups. The coolest part of the opening night for me, it was Andrew Jones getting on the court. Battled leukemia.
That is a special deal right there. He's been through so much, and hopefully it stays away. But him coming back that's spectacular, man. That's for a kid to have to deal with that. And it's tough, but I agree. That is the coolest thing that happened last night.
Yeah, I mean, he scores second half. They put him in. Game's a little bit in hand against Eastern Illinois. I talked to Shaka Smart, and one of the things he said, listen, Andrew really wanted to play this year. Didn't want a red shirt, wanted to play. This is a kid who thought he'd probably be in the NBA by now.
Right.
He's not near 100%, but Andrew Jones can wake up and score. I mean, that's what he is. He's a scorer. But,
right.
I think
also
Shaka,
just for his mindset.
Yeah.
It goes.
Yeah.
He's had something far more severe than an injury. But even if you're hurt or in his case he was sick, basketball is something he loves. So like when you finally get that back, just you feel like you're part of a team again. It's tough when you're away, and for him it's times 1,000. It's not just being hurt. You're dealing with something that's life altering. But I'm sure that just his level of happiness of getting back to doing what you love to do, that's a special deal.
By the way, on a side note, now I can't believe how much you had to go through in terms of I suffered like my first real injury back at the end of May, early June.
What was it?
A tibial plateau fracture and torn MCL. So it's like,
how'd you do it?
I was a dumbass, and I'm playing softball, and I went back in a ball. As I'm catching the ball, the
World Series of softball, huh?
Yeah.
Up in Boston.
Yeah, I'm too old for that shit. So the guy clipped me, so I fell, and tibial plateau fracture. Didn't need surgery, but couldn't put weight on it for 6 weeks. So I have I'd never had real injury before. So now I'm like sitting around thinking like, how the hell did you do it? How did you go through two major, really three, right, for you? Three?
Yeah, I had my back, then I had 2 ACLs. But honestly, it comes down to when you can feel that the high of playing in a major college basketball game, that's a pretty good reason to rehab. I mean, when you run out on the court and there's 16,000 people there from your school, or even you run on the court and it's from another school, you understand why these rock stars play to their 75. Yeah. I mean, how do you replicate that feeling? It's why I play in these stupid 3-on-3 tournaments now, like in all over the world. Like, it gives me a little bit of that feeling without having to live overseas for 8 months. So it's just, I love to play, man. Like, I still love to play, and that helps you. Like, it's one of those things where last year I wasn't really committed to playing a whole lot this summer yet. And it was like, well, I could lift weights and I could get on the treadmill, but why? I don't have to do anything. And that's not a good way to look at it by any means. But it's when you have something that you're working towards, and for me it was always, hey, man, get back on the court. Be one of the best players of the Big Ten. Try to be an All-American again. that was good motivation for me. So it's easier when you have something you're looking forward to.
Yeah, listen, there's no doubt. I mean, with me, it's a different ball game now in my 40s, where I'm like, all right, do I really care that much about playing old man softball again?
I mean, you want to be able to play softball, maybe golf,
right?
Ski if you do that, but I guess you're working all winter, so you probably don't do that either.
I do not ski. Golf would be the thing I would take up if I had the patience to do so, but it's certainly safer. I mean, listen, like when you get hurt playing old man softball, you're like, what do I do to bring it down a notch? Like that's about as low as you can go.
Golf, bowling. Although my dad hurt himself bowling a couple years ago, so maybe bowling's not the answer.
It's bad when you get old, man. It's bad. It's just not. It's not a good thing. I told this story the other night. I'll give you a quick story on the NBA version of the podcast that I do with Bill Ryder the other night. I'm still not feeling like great with my knee, but like I'm all right. Anyway, the quick Cliff Notes version of the story is my wife and I are in a movie the night before our anniversary. There's 3 15 or 16-year-old boys that are in the same movie, and that's it. There's only 5 of us. So these boys won't shut up. They're moving around. They're vaping. They're doing everything they shouldn't be doing. Everything they shouldn't be doing. They get up 3 or 4 times. 3 or 4 times they leave, come back. And it's a movie like some like Susan Sarandon, like serious movie. I'm like, why are they even in here? They were in there probably to vape. Right. So finally they come back like a 4th time, and I said something to them. I don't even remember what I said. So one of them starts talking back to me. So I'm like, all right, like.
Did you fight an 18-year-old kid in the movie theater?
No, probably worse. Probably worse. I didn't throw punches, but at the end of it all, they come out, and they were so disrespectful to both my wife and me. At the end, they come out, and I decide I'm going to stand outside, and I'm going to take pictures of them. So as the first one comes out, I take a picture, and I said, hey, I can't wait to tweet this to my 250,000 Twitter followers so your mommy can see so your mom can hear about what you did today. The other one puts his hood on, so I can't get a good picture of him. And he starts saying, you can't take pictures. He's talking crap to me, 15, disrespectful, whatever. So you know what I did? He starts running down the hallway through the movie theater. I chase him.
This is a great scene.
Taking a picture.
Do we have footage of this?
No, thank God there's no video. Thank God.
I mean, security cameras in this movie.
There probably were. I'm not going to say which theater it is because, man, if anybody gets the footage of this, I'm going to look like the biggest jackass ever. But I'm chasing this kid.
The greater Boston area. We'll find it.
I'm chasing this kid down the movie theater into the parking lot just to try to scare the crap out of him. And my wife is at this point behind me yelling like, Jeff, get back here. And it's on like anniversary night. So my knee felt good. Like that, I think part of it was the kid sprinted out in the parking lot. I'm like,
that was the moment you knew you were back. You're
like,
let me see. Softball now.
Yeah, let me see if I can catch this kid. Now I couldn't. I didn't catch him, and I wasn't gonna catch him. But I felt pretty good. And the next day, not so good. So I'm sure
glad that you said that because I was playing in this 3-on-3 tournament outside Venice this last season. And my girlfriend went on the trip. All of our girlfriends went, and it was sweet. It was on the beach, right, like an hour outside Venice. Super nice. You can see like Croatia across the sea. Really cool deal. And we got the shaft in this game. Now I've gotten more technical fouls in the last like 4 months of playing this than I probably have in my freaking life. Like
3-on-3? Come on. You're getting teed up all the time.
They call no fouls. They call nothing. So. Wow. One of our guys goes to the rim. It's like a close game, and you're playing for money. Like you get kind of the competitive juices flowing for sure. And we've got this one guy who's reffing the game who's older, and then we got this like 18-year-old kid who I swear some of these like local ones that we play in, like the Masters tournaments. It's kind of like tennis. You got the Challengers, you got the Masters. The Masters have like the same officiating crews, and they're not really good either. But the Challengers, you get some people from like that town reffing these games, which is a complete joke. So there's this 19-year-old kid reffing the game. And we get the shaft at the end. They don't call a foul. We end up losing. I absolutely lose my mind on this kid, like 19 years old. And I'm like, I'm going berserk talking about, this is embarrassing that I'm even telling you this, but I'm like, I told him I've played all over the world. You're the worst ref I've ever seen in my life. Like, literally crushing this guy. My language is abysmal. Like, and I get done, and I literally think to myself, like, dude,
what did I do?
You just cussed out a 19-year-old Italian kid who's probably never refed a game in his life. I see my girlfriend after the game. She's like, dude, I've never really seen you act like that before. We've been together for a while. And I'm like, I had to have like a self-reflection period, maybe like you did after this.
No doubt.
I was like, dude, what am I doing? I usually am pretty composed, but just a complete screw job by this officiating crew, and I lost my mind. So I've been there, dude.
I know. It's so hard, though, because like you said, in the moment, you kind of lose it.
It felt right in the
moment.
Yes. I felt good yelling at this dude when I was doing it.
I still don't
then
completely.
I had to apologize to him. Then he refed our quarterfinal game we lost, probably because we didn't get any calls for sure.
Well, I was going to tweet out the picture of these kids and say, like, does anybody know who they are? I was really close. But then my wife's like,
I'm proud of you for holding back.
My wife's like, what are you going to do? You're going to call the parents?
Yeah.
I'm like, yeah, damn right. I'm going to call the parents.
The kids out.
Right.
I don't know what they were doing.
Exactly. I'm like, wouldn't you want somebody to call us? We have a 15-year-old daughter who's a freshman in high school. Wouldn't you want somebody to call us if they saw our daughter vaping or being disrespectful to adults? And she's like, yeah, but, why are you going to bother?
That's true. No, if it's your kid, you would want to hear it.
Totally. Speaking of kids, I'm gonna leave you with this one. My boy LaMelo Ball is back playing. He's back playing in the U.S. He's back. Spires Institute in Geneva, Ohio. I know you're going to go there.
Are you the beat writer for their team?
Hell no. On the beat? I'm trying not to tweet about him. I really don't even want to talk about him on the podcast, but it is interesting. It is interesting because
no, it is.
I
was reading about it. Yeah. I saw where he's playing in Lalamere, which is pretty close to my parents' house.
You're gonna go. You gotta go.
No, I can't. I can't bring myself to that.
It's hard because the kid is actually pretty talented. He's not Lonzo, but he's talented, and
he just doesn't know how to play, man.
No
one's ever taught him how to play basketball.
So I talked to the coach.
It's sad.
The coach called me yesterday because I didn't know who was coaching him, and I tweeted that.
Right.
And the coach is a guy named Jermaine Jackson. He was an assistant at Detroit, and he's put together this team at Spires Institute. It's pretty good. I mean, Rocket Watts is going to Michigan State. Isaiah Jackson, a big-time player. And my first thought when I heard this was, poor Rocket Watts.
He's going to be subjected to the circus that is.
And he's never going to see the ball. Like, the most frustrating to watch, and Jermaine Jackson said, he's like, I'm going to hold him accountable. I said, all right, if you do, great. Like, if you can do that to LaMelo Ball and get him to guard just a little bit and get him to think twice before taking dumbass, threes from 45 feet when you've already missed 6 straight, then all the power to you. But he's like,
but you know what? We've seen LeVar Ball get shut up, and that's by LeBron James. That's by a different deal.
Yeah.
But so maybe if that can happen, anything's possible.
No shot, Rob. There's no way LeVar, you think he's going to respect some dude that he's never heard of? Like, he's going to try to run this again?
No. I'm just saying if LeVar could be shut up by LeBron James, then maybe anything is possible.
Maybe. I mean, I
don't think it's going to happen, but I'm just saying we haven't heard anything from LeVar. That shows how much juice LeBron's got.
What's the over/under on how long LaMelo Ball lasts at Spires Institute?
I gave him, I want to say 2 months to last in Lithuania. Did that happen?
I think it was over. Yeah, because I went in January. I think they made it. I think they might have made it 3.
They were living the typical Lithuanian lifestyle, though. We played there when I was in Russia a couple times. Like, they were living at like this luxury spa.
I was there.
So
I was at the luxury spa.
Too.
I could have stayed. Like, listen, if I didn't have to deal with them, like, that was a good spot. Like, food.
So they weren't like they weren't living a typical Lithuanian basketball player story. I'll give him, just because I don't think he can mesh with an actual legitimate basketball deal. I'll give him 8 weeks again. I'll give him 2 months.
Yeah, this is what they should have done in the first place. Like, why send him overseas? He didn't get any better. He didn't learn anything overseas in the last year. So it's like a year of development to me thrown out the window instead of put him at Oak Hill. Put him at Oak Hill Academy or something like that.
Yeah, let him play with studs.
Right.
Or like a Montverde or one of those.
Yeah, Montverde would be great.
But if they were serious about it, you also are going to get exposed too.
Absolutely.
Because I've seen videos where he plays like the Compton Magic, and it's like, Compton Magic is a good AAU program.
Yep.
So when you play them, you can't be shooting 60-foot shots and throwing over-the-head passes full court. Like, they'll expose you.
Yep.
And that's what would have happened there, but he would have got better.
No doubt. No doubt.
It's really sad. Like, you've taken
is.
your middle son out of college with a great opportunity to play for a world-class university with one of the blue blood programs in college basketball. That's taken away. And now your youngest son, he's ineligible. He can't go to college. High school-wise, he can't go to half of them. Like, I guess they've made money, but that's not the best interest for them, especially if they wanted to play and become, like, good players.
But LeVar doesn't care about education, so thus his sons don't care about education.
No, and that's too bad.
It is too bad because,
it is fortunate. I mean, Lonzo's a good player. Like, he has some ability. So I can see where, with him, 1 year at school, get out of there. But these other kids, I'm not sold on that. I know the middle one's not, and I don't think the younger one is either.
Well, listen, thanks for jumping on. Appreciate your insights as always. We'll do it again soon. And now the big thing, just watch Duke and see if they can sustain this, which is going to be awfully hard to do with the level of expectation that they set in Game 1. Almost unfair now. Yeah.
That was the expectation levels have skyrocketed. So we'll see.
All right. Thanks, man. I appreciate it.
Yep.
Talk to you soon.
Good job.
Later.
All right. Bye.
Thanks again for joining us. Another edition of Good and Plenty in the books. College Hoops is now here. So every night we will have some more to talk about than certainly we have in the off season. But the guests will keep coming. We'll try to find good, insightful, different types of guests as we have since we started the College Hoops podcast about, now 4 or 5 weeks ago. You can subscribe, iTunes, Stitcher, CLNS Media. Please give us your reviews. You can find me on Twitter at Goodman Hoops. You can find me in my written work and TV work on WatchStadium.com, where I work along with Shams Charania and Brett McMurphy. And I'd like to thank Robbie Hummel, this week's guest. As usual, was terrific. A TV star now at ESPN and the Big Ten Network. Want to always thank my producer / co-host, Chris Grenham, who does all the heavy lifting. And we will see you again next Tuesday for the NBA edition, next Thursday for the College Hoops edition. Thanks for joining us.